Thanks for stopping by my channel, for joining me here for Keep Going. Going is grieving out in nature. And stay tuned for the segment to follow. Hey, Carol, aka Cielle here. Thank you for stopping by my channel, for joining me for this series, Keep Going. To talk about grieving, about grief, about the issues surrounding grief. And so we'll use GOIN as our acronym for this series. Stands for Grieving Out in Nature. We will talk about embracing nature as a means for managing our grief. Not just nature as in being in the outdoors, in the elements, in the earth and natural spaces, but also your own personal nature and what speaks to you, what is life enriching and soul nourishing for you. About 8 months ago, I recorded the first segment for the series, and I talked about what I call PIO of grief. Not pile, but PIO, P-I-O. Among those points, I talk about finding great outlets, healthy outlets for managing your grief. In this particular series, we will talk about several different aspects of grief, different issues surrounding grief. We'll have conversations about how we're managing our grief. I don't profess to be a counselor. This is nothing intended to be clinical. This is not medical advice. It is certainly not psychiatric advice. I am not qualified to do any of those things. This is more like peer-to-peer. This is us just having conversations and walking with each other and helping each other through our grief. So stick with me, come back often. Please subscribe, like, and stay tuned for the upcoming segment. Thank you. Namaste. Today is June the 28th. I am sleepy as all get out. Tonight is June 28th, 2024. Today marks 2 years. It marks 2 years since my mommy passed away. Not a day goes by. Y'all hear me? Not a day goes by that I don't think about my mama. Sometimes I feel like I'm thinking about her too much. Like, am I moving forward? Am I processing? Am I carrying on with my life? And I do, of course. I have things that I'm working on and things that I'm doing, and I focus on what I need to focus on, when I need to focus. But she's always there. She's always here, in my thoughts, in my heart, in my just. Sometimes it's I don't want to say overwhelming, but today marks 2 years, and I just wanted to pop in. Oh, I didn't introduce myself. This is Carol, aka Cielle, and I'm just doing I need to be on the treadmill. Have mercy. Tilt the camera, boo, because you're gonna need to work on some things. Have mercy. Yeah. So I'm not gonna spend a whole lot of time because I want to make sure before I run out of juice here, I want to take time to write to moms, write a letter. So I'm going to talk about a few things. This is going to be the first series in the first of this playlist of me discussing grief, me doing what I can do to help other people through their grief. I just wanted to drop some pointers. I feel like it's been 2 years for us now, having lost mom, wife, grandma, great grandma, auntie. I won't say sister because all her siblings had already passed away before her. But in this playlist, in this series, I will be coming, just bringing some pointers, some tips, just some, I won't even call them pointers and tips because everybody's going to grieve differently. Everybody is going to grieve differently. It's going to hit differently for everybody. But all I can do is talk about my experience. And don't ever take what I'm saying, my experience, to be an absolute, or that I'm trying to define or draw lines or predict what grief will be like for you if you're watching and you're somebody who's grieving, because I can't do that, and I can't do that, and it's just gonna be different for everybody. All I can do is talk about what I've been through, how grief hit me, the way, the multiple ways that it has affected me, and how I've dealt with it, how I'm continuing to deal with it. It's not a destination. It's absolutely not a destination. Like, I'm grieving. One day I'm going to get there and I'm going to be okay. One day I'm going to get there and this is going to pass. Negative. It's not that kind of thing. It's not a destination. It's a journey. And once it's with you, it's with you. And it's going to be a lifelong journey. Nothing will ever be the same again. Now, losing mom was not the first experience with death in my life. Our family, oh gosh. We've seen a lot of death. We've seen a lot of premature death. We buried a lot of young folks. That's why when I hit 50, baby, I was in that hotel room in Playa del Carmen, Mexico, and I danced my little tail off because I was just grateful. A sister who never saw 21, cousin who never saw 39, another cousin never saw 30, neither one of them ever saw 40, actually a few cousins. And so just grateful to be alive. But here again, I'm going off on a tangent like I do. Let's talk about grief. 3 pointers. I'm going to try to keep these videos in this series rather short. For this video, I'm using the acronym or the abbreviation PIO. PIO. And I don't know if these will be in any particular order, any particular rank in importance or priority and how, but they're just some, it's just my insight, my feedback based on my experience. That's it. PIO, P-I-O, patience, intention or being intentional, and then outlets. Okay, so let's just go through those 3 really quickly so we can be about it and I can get to mommy's letter. Patience. Be patient with yourself. If you're grieving, if you're somebody that's dealing with anticipated grief. Anticipated grief is a thing. I guess that's a whole new video by itself. People who are terminally ill, somebody that's advanced age, and you see it coming. You know it's coming. People deal with what's known as anticipated grief. You're already grieved. They're not even dead yet. And you're already grieving, the impending loss. But whether you're dealing with grief, anticipated grief, patience. That's the P in PIO. Learn to be patient with yourself. You want to be patient with other people around you. What I call your co-grievers, your partners in grief. Those would be pigs. Your partners in grief. The loved one that you've lost, the other people around you who are also hurting and grieving the loss of that person. You want to be patient with yourself. You want to be patient with your partners in grief. I think the patience with yourself is the main one I want to talk about. Oh my goodness, it's just such a temptation for me, it was a temptation to just analyze everything, censor everything. What's that? Censor or censure? not always. Sometimes I'm, just kind of in that mind frame. I don't care or whatever. But there's other times it's just like your mind overthinking things. Oh my goodness, am I grieving correctly? Oh my goodness, I felt like I should have cried at that moment. Why didn't that make me cry? Going into spaces and places and unexpected. Please be patient with yourself. Be patient with your family members. Something I have not always done well with, or don't always do well with. For the most part, I'm okay or whatever, but just, there's the whole, oh my goodness, gosh. I'm trying to tread carefully because I want to make sure I'm sticking with my experience, my pain, my grief, and not be stepping over into exposing, or I'm trying to speak for what family members are going through. But I have to talk about it because it's a huge part of it, and just the dynamics of family relationships, and how you grieve, and what goes on in your grief process is going to be very largely affected by your family dynamics. It very much will be. And that is why it is very important to take time for yourself, to get by yourself, and just make time and space for silence and solitude. But yeah, be patient with yourself. Oh, so and so, what I'm saying, that was a trigger or whatever, or I just thought about when mom did so and so and so and so, or said so and so, and there are things that you will feel like should make you cry, or should make you sad, or should make you hurt, and they don't. There's other things that you expect to be completely and totally benign or innocuous and inconsequential, and they completely rip you apart. My mother was a fierce seamstress. She sewed for years, probably over 40, 50, maybe even 60 years. If she died at 76, yeah, mom started sewing at like 14, 15. Yeah. So the first few months or whatever, me going through the fabric department at Walmart, not a good move. There's one time I was in the store and I literally had to just rush and get out of the store because I felt like I was going to lose it just walking through the fabric department. Mama loved the fabric department, going and buying fabric and thread and elastic and all kinds of other accessories and notions that go along with sewing. Oh my goodness. So be patient with yourself, because you don't know how it's going to hit you. You don't know when it's going to hit you. You don't know what's going to hit you. Very simple tasks, simple memories, simple things, simple just stuff that just strikes a memory about your lost loved one, and it just, some stuff that you never see coming will set you off. Just be patient with yourself. Walk through it. If you're trying to deal with the pain, you're trying to get to some semblance of healing. To get to it, you have to walk through it. Let me say that again. You're looking for some semblance of healing and restoration, and just getting to some semblance of normalcy. To get to it, you're going to have to walk through it. Lean into the pain. Lean into the hurt. Lean into the tears. Lean into, you're not, the last thing you want to be doing is trying to, suppress. That's a whole nother video by itself, because there will be times you do have to table your grief. I hear people say, well, child, if you just need to cry, you just let it out, honey. Don't even worry about nobody. Just whenever you need to cry, you just let it out. That sounds good, but it's not always practical. Especially, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm talking about. You at the kids' soccer game, and something just happened, or somebody just said something that it made you think about your loved one or whatever, and you're sitting up in the stands, and everybody else is, not to say that you have to worry about everybody else around you, but you're just going to be in some settings that's just not conducive or appropriate or very acceptable. You high-level management. You're in the boardroom. You're doing some kind of presentation or whatever, and all eyes are on you. You lost a loved one, whatever, and it just triggered something, and you just want to just bawl out. And some people will. Sometimes you can't help it or whatever. But there are going to be times. I'm not an advocate for suppressing all the time, but there are going to be times. It's like, okay, I'm going to deal with this when I get off work, okay? Because right now it's hitting me, whatever. But I'm just going, you know what I'm saying? I'm just going to, whoosah, and I'll deal with this when I get off work. And the interesting thing is, by the time you get in the space where you can deal with it, sometimes your mind, your heart has moved on to something else. You've heard a song that makes you jolly, happy, everything's hunky-dory again. So you kind of be patient with yourself. Here again, you don't know. This takes me to my second point in the PIO, the PIO of grief. It's intentional, being intentional. Because there will be times that you have to table your grief or delay or whatever. Your kids are pulling at you, or your spouse, or your whoever. It's situations in work or whatever, and you just are not where you can just lean into it or spend. And so that's why I think it's important to be very intentional about grieving. Have certain days of the week, not that it has to be so scheduled and rigid, but when I say be intentional, it may call for having a particular time or day, or you may not be where you can make it consistent, but be regular. Even if it can't be consistent in the same time of day, same day of the week, just make it a regular thing, that I'm going to carve out time to sit with my grief. It's almost like going and sitting in with a counselor, a therapist. Not necessarily a therapist there, it's you and you. We should talk about that in another video too. Getting professional help when you need it. Knowing if and when you need professional help. And I certainly did and do. But here again, running, busy, not making time, not being intentional. I can tell you that in the early process, the early stage or stages of my grief, I was a lot more intentional. As time goes on, we start to kind of get back into our groove, back into our flow. You're busy. There's things to do. Most of us lead busy lives. What I'm telling you when I say be intentional is just that the time is not going to automatically present itself. Not going to just carve out time for you to have to sit with your pain, to deal with it, to feel what you're feeling, to just sit and remember and go through your pictures and videos. My family is very fortunate that we took copious amounts of photos and videos. And so there's just plenty of resources if I want to just have my moment. Like on Mother's Day, I took the day, the evening, or whatever. It's very intentional about, I'm just gonna, this is my evening. I'm gonna look at Mom's pictures, watch a video, watch her up speaking in church. And sometimes I weep and I shed tears. Other times it's more smiling and laughing. I tell you something my cousin told me when Mama died, and she was kind of giving pointers and sharing from her experience. She told me, and I will never forget this. She said there will be times